You are listening to The Red Velvet Woman, Episode 2. Welcome to The Red Velvet Woman. This is a podcast for women who want to build a beautiful life after toxic narcissistic relationships. I am obsessed with assisting these women who are on the verge of change to help them transform their lives by getting unstuck, stepping into your power, and unlocking the best version of you, and ultimately fulfilling your potential after breaking free from your narcissistic ex. I'm going to help you empower yourself to heal, recover, and redesign your thoughts and energy so that you flourish into the beautiful and amazing person you always were underneath and are going to be again. But this version of you is going to be bigger and better. This is for those babes who are ready to leave their limits at the door and level up. Your life is about to change, so get ready. I have personally gone from confusion to clarity and from survive to thrive. And guess what? So can you. I am your host, Olivia Powell. I'm a life coaching student, a registered nurse and midwife, business owner, YouTuber, and the creator of The Red Velvet Woman. I am so happy that you're here. Let's do this together. Hello and welcome back, my sister friends. I am super excited to share with you my story and what happened to me. This is actually part 1 of my story. I'm going to go into part 2 on the next podcast episode, so stay tuned. But I'm thinking it'd be a good idea to share with you a bit about my past. Let's get into it. So for the sake of maintaining confidentiality and protecting my ex's identity, I will be referring to him as Hugo, and there is a reason for that, and I will reveal that later. I was only 19 years old when the narcissist stumbled into my life at that point. I was pretty young. I was a pretty little young skinny thing, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, very impressionable and quite innocent. I was a sweet little Christian girl. I was raised in a religious community for most of my life down in Victoria and had somewhat been protected from the dangers of the world. Somewhat lived a bit of a sheltered life. I was new to the area as I had just moved from Victoria to New South Wales, which is, for those that don't know, about a 10-hour drive. At the time, I was studying uni. I was actually studying an undergraduate degree in nursing, and I had met a couple of people through nursing, and although I hadn't made very strong friendships just yet, I was technically at my best physically because I'd gone through a breakup with my high school sweetheart, and I channeled all that energy by running around the local oval like 13 times a day. I was super fit. I lost all the puppy fat that I had in my teenage years, and I was really coming into my own physically, and I decided as a means of meeting more people, I needed to get out there and meet some more people. So I decided to ask an acquaintance / friend / PR from uni to go Latin dancing with me one night. So we got together, we went to a Latin dance club during the week, and this is where I actually met Hugo and some of his friends. We all had a lot of fun, and before I knew it, we were regularly catching up every week, dancing together, and then pretty quickly, I'd say it took off. Our friends hit it off. I started to get swept off my feet. There was definitely chemistry and flirting and attraction, and it very rapidly turned into what felt like a whirlwind romance in a matter of weeks. Hugo was taking me on extravagant dinners in luxury cars, showered me with like really cute little gifts and, designer handbags and compliments, and he would text me frequently, those little messages in the morning where it's like, good morning, gorgeous, and good night, and all that sort of stuff. It was all very lovey-dovey. And it kind of, he'd just call me out of the blue just to hear my voice. I know, very soppy. I had never really been treated like this in all my life, and it took me a bit by surprise, but I really liked it. I felt like I had literally met the man of my dreams. Hugo was tall and dark and handsome and just so charming and really romantic. He was funny, really quick-witted. He just had these quick comebacks just for everything. It was just hilarious. He was super talented. He was an excellent dancer, obviously. He could sing and he could play sport. There was nothing that he couldn't really do by the looks of things when I first met him. And another thing is that he was very confident and very intelligent, which just was so attractive to me, and chivalrous and attentive and playful and affectionate and spontaneous. He was like a real man. Compared to my high school sweetheart, we were both really young and in our teen years, and it was more like a cutesy little love sort of thing. Whereas when I met Hugo, he treated me like his lady, and I felt like a grown woman. I know that sounds funny, I was only 19, but he treated me like a princess, like his queen. It just felt amazing. I felt loved and I felt safe and I felt protected in his embrace, and I was so excited and I felt really admired and respected and treasured and cherished and all of those positive emotions. I met his family very early on in the relationship and they fully embraced me. It felt great. People would actually comment on how loved up we were in public because we, had public displays of affection. And they would say that I literally was glowing from the inside out, and so was he. I had a twinkle in my eye and I had a spring in my step, and our joy and our contentment with one another was just undeniable to everyone around us. And we had such a very strong connection that everyone could see it. Hugo actually went to the same university as me and we saw each other nearly every day. We played in the same sporting teams as each other. We'd hang out all the time in between classes. Our friendship groups just meshed together beautifully. Everything just seemed to click, and everything had kind of unexpectedly slid into place perfectly, and life was literally bliss for months and months on end. I'd never been so happy in all my life, and I had never felt so in love, and I'd never felt so understood by someone. Like, it actually felt like perpetual bliss. Not one thing was missing. It was as if like the heavens had opened up and the birds were singing and there was rainbows and unicorns all day long. And at the time I felt like life was better than perfect. I was so in love and it had hit me really hard. I had this overwhelming sensation that I'd found my happily ever after. The Hollywood movie sort of love that we all dream and fantasize about growing up when we're little girls. Well, I had that guy, and that was the guy that every girl wanted for herself. And the actual acquaintance/friend that I initially went Latin dancing with was super jealous. And so were other people I knew at the time. Even though I felt bad for them, I felt really happy for me. It was literally the best time of my life. And I truly believed that I'd met the love of my life and that no one could or would ever hold a candle to him in comparison. And I only had eyes for him, and I felt like he only had eyes for me. He would tell everyone how much he loved me and how lucky he was that he'd found someone like me. And he even proclaimed it at the weddings that he used to MC. This part of my life just felt completed. I felt whole, and I felt like I was on a really positive and exciting journey and had such high hopes for our future together, where I actually envisioned finishing our degrees together and having the beautiful big, I guess the Australian dream, at the time you'd grow up together, have these amazing careers and the beautiful big white wedding and the big dress and the doves released and living in the house of our dreams with a white picket fence and a dog or whatever and surrounded by our gorgeous children. I can't tell you how I'd never felt so blissed out in all my life on happiness. It felt so good. I've just felt high on life. It was amazing. And guess what? It was too good to be true. And without even knowing it, boom, he had me hooked. I was in love and never looking back. In reality, I had actually been targeted without even knowing it. Little did I know at the time that all of this had actually been meticulously and thoughtfully planned out. After about 1 year of being together, the sparkle started to wear off, and my head that was in the clouds actually started to re-emerge, and I started to float back down to earth. Because slowly but surely, the man that I thought I'd fallen in love with, well, he had started to dissipate in front of me. And little did I know it, that it would all go downhill from there, slowly and painfully, and eventually come to an end about 6 to 8 years later. And it was really sad because there were no more extravagant dinners, let alone date nights. And there were no more texts or phone calls. It was just me reaching out to him all the time with little or no response at all. And the gifts, even though they remained kind of the same, they just became extremely infrequent and only kind of given on rare occasions. But the romance had just disappeared with it. When he'd present me with a present on a birthday or an anniversary or Christmas, it was like he was giving me his heart. That's how it felt. And it just felt so amazing because the romance was so heavily linked to it. But in the end, when he was giving me these gifts, it was just like an emptiness, like, oh, here you go. There you go. I've given it to you. My job's done. All right, what's next? Do you know what I mean? Like, it was very disconnected. And the compliments that Hugo had initially showered me with had pretty much turned into a stream of constant criticism. And any sort of attention or attentive behaviour that he previously displayed, it had dwindled significantly, and he was distracted nearly all the time by other things, and it had become quite clear that I had made my way to the bottom of his priority list, and in fact, sometimes I even wondered if I was still even on that list. The inner glow that people actually commented on about me I would say was initially very bright, but it had dimmed remarkably over time. I'd come off that high feeling of being in love with Hugo and was definitely off the high and onto the low. Everything had just flipped. Everything I thought I knew was no longer. The mask that he wore as the Hugo that I once knew and fell in love with started to slip. I'd say it probably started to slip off around maybe the 1 year mark. And at the 2 to 3 year mark, or maybe 3 to 4 year mark, it had pretty much slipped off. And then by the 4th to 5th year mark, 6th year, I don't know, it's really hard to kind of gauge, but I would say it had completely come off altogether and I hardly even recognized the man in front of me. The mask was gone. His disguise was gone. I was left with this person that I really didn't know, and I was confused why I still loved him because he looked like the same person. I had all these memories of this person, but the reality and the person in front of me just wasn't matching up. It was all misaligned. It was bizarre. Unfortunately, those earlier days were now behind me, and so was the person that I used to be. They were never to return, and my new unideal reality slowly but surely kind of took center stage. And you're probably wondering what happened and why I stayed for as long as I did and how I got out. And some of you have probably even researched and educated yourself a little bit about narcissism and might already know some of the answers, but I'm going to go through them with you anyway. These are all things that you'll learn. If you want to hear what happens next, then listen on, my sister friends, because I'm going to delve deeper than what I already have into the second part of my story. So I hope to see you all there. Thanks for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would really appreciate it if you guys would leave me a review on iTunes. I ask this because your review will help the success of this show so that it has the potential to reach many more women out there who would benefit from hearing this message, as podcasts have an algorithm too, just like Facebook and Instagram and other platforms out there. If you enjoyed this podcast or something has resonated with you, then be sure to subscribe so you're informed of every new episode that is released and so you don't miss a thing. And share the love by passing this on to someone you know who would benefit from hearing the free content of this podcast. I know that I personally would have benefited from hearing something like this when I was going through my own healing and recovery journey, and it would have propelled me forward further to feel a lot better sooner. So for more beyond this podcast, find the Red Velvet Woman Facebook page, ask to be added to the exclusive group, and come hang out with me on Instagram, where you will find uplifting, thought-provoking quotes and pretty pictures, as well as my link to my YouTube videos. If you want to reach me, you can do so by emailing me at theredvelvetwoman@gmail.com. Until next time, much love, Olivia. Thanks for listening.